Okay, so this week is Parshas Bamidbar, and we are starting a new book, the book of Numbers, and it's called the book of Numbers because at the very beginning we're doing a census. We're numbering, we're counting the numbers of the legions of the Jewish people by Shvatim, by tribes, and then the total number. And it's a new beginning. So it's a new book, it's a new beginning, and it's the first book of the book of Bamidbar. The Parsha is called Bamidbar as well. And let's look back a little bit at the different books of the Torah, and we'll see what this book of the Torah is about. So if we look at the first book of the Torah, there's 5 books of the Torah. The first book is Bereshit, which means beginnings, or Genesis, and it's about the beginnings of the Jewish people. It's about the beginnings of the world, the beginning of creation, and the beginnings of the Jewish people, their history, how they started, how they became a nation, who are our ancestors, who are our roots, how did we become who we are. Next we have Shemot, which means, we call it Exodus in English, but really it's names, the names that God is calling to us. We have the birth of the Jewish people in Bereshit. We have the whole genealogy, the ancestry. Then comes Shemot, where God is saying, I'm choosing you to become my nation from amongst the other nations. I'm calling you by my name of my people, my Jewish people. So, and we have Matan Torah, the giving of the Torah. That's the highlight of the whole book of Shemot, God calling us and giving us that Shemot. Then we have Vayikra, which is the book of Leviticus, or the word Vayikra is actually, and he called to us, and God is calling us. So we have our ancestors, how we became the Jewish people in Bereshit. We then became the Jewish nation. God chose us, God gave us the Torah. Vayikra, God is calling to us collectively as well as individually. And he's saying, now I'm calling to you to do your calling, to do your purpose in this world. I'm calling, you were given the Torah, and now I'm calling you to actualize that potential, to do what you're supposed to be doing, to draw close to me, to separate yourself from the other nations of the world. And we know, Am Levadad Yishkon, we are a nation that lives alone. We've seen that throughout history, and at times when we thought we weren't living alone, we've reminded about it over and over and over again, and unfortunately nowadays we're reminded all the more so. So we became that nation that lives alone. We're a nation that's separate from all the other nations, but at the same time as we're separate from the other nations, God doesn't want us to just be somewhere separate. He wants us to be in this world, to change this world, and that's why we're spread out throughout the world. That's why we're spread out amongst all the nations of the world. And that's why over all the generations, we've been spread out to try to elevate the world, to try to give the gifts that we've been given, to teach the morality that we've been given. So Vayikra is God calling us to be his nation, calling us to do our job in this world. I've given you the Torah, now I'm calling to you on a Vayikra means that he called. And he called. Leviticus, which means, but the word itself, Vayikra, is and he called. God is calling to us. I've given you the Torah, now I'm calling you to actually do what the Torah is saying. Now we have the book of Bamidbar, so we've been entrusted with this task. God is calling to each of us personally, and now we have the book of Bamidbar, which means numbers, because it's starting in the numbers, but the word Bamidbar is actually in the desert, because we were in the desert. It was after the Torah was given, and we're standing here in the desert, in the Midbar, and we haven't yet reached the land of Israel. We're in the Midbar and going through the desolation of the journeys of the Midbar. And this part of Bamidbar is really God saying to each and every one of us, I've entrusted you. You have an ancestry. You have that rich ancestry of Bereshit. We're given the Torah. You know what you're supposed to do. I called you each personally, and I called you each collectively, telling you to do your purpose. Now you're going out to the Midbar. Now you're going out to the wilderness. You're going to the wilderness of life, the desolation of life. This is really where we're at now. We're in the desolation of life. God is telling us in the desolation of life, your purpose is not to be somewhere in an oasis. Your purpose is to be in the Midbar, to be in the desert. Until the Mashiach comes, you are in the desolation. And here is where you're going to do your function. You're going to do your job, the job that you were given of being Am Skula, God's chosen nation, God's nation who is supposed to be a light unto all the nations, this is where you're going to do it, in the desolation. And when we think about our own lives, this is really the purpose of our own lives. Our purpose of our lives is we confront the desolation of life, one challenge after another challenge. And that's what life is all about. We have one challenge, one difficulty after another, and each of them is supposed to bring out the strongest part of ourselves, the greatest part of ourselves. As we overcome the challenge, we realize parts of ourselves that we never ever realized we had. And we see how the chain continues and how we're progressing to something greater. And it just, in the desert, yeah. And it just became, it brought it home to me, this message, a little bit on a personal level. This past Friday, which was the bris, as we said, of my grandson. And it was just how you see how the circle of life comes around again. At the end of my father's life, he was this powerful, smart, brilliant person. And at the end of his life, he was like, you could see he was already starting his journey. He was like he was still 100% with it, but he was losing his sense of actual where he was. Like he would say, like, take me up to my room. And I'm like, you're in your bed, Daddy. And he would look at me with these eyes of like a childlike eyes, like looking at me and with such trust and saying to me, okay, thank you, Chana, you're right, I'm in my bed now. Like he wasn't even sure where he was, with this trust. Or I would say, take a little bit more to eat, have a little bit more you need to eat, it's good for you. It's good for me, I need to, with this trust, this trusting, of like these eyes of almost like a child looks to the parent, and I'd be feeding him like to a child. And that reminded me of how the circle of life goes around and around, and as we named my grandson, David, after my father, the first grandchild to be named after my father, I'm holding him, and again, these like eyes are looking up at you, these eyes of trust, these eyes of just, you're the world to them, and you're just this trust of what they are. Everything is that you're doing for them is so trusting and so reliant on you, and it just shows you like how the circle of life just goes around and around, and this is what it's all about. And then we're doing the bris, of course, and we, I think thinking at that moment, this is the bris milah that we've been doing for centuries, for millennia. This is what the Jewish people have been doing in every situation, in every circumstance, throughout our exiles, throughout the times that we've had peace, throughout the times of Masada, the Holocaust, throughout all the horrific times and the good times, the times that we've had peace, the times that we've had prosperity, the times that we've had, and we did it in the yeshiva building, surrounded by all the boy. My son-in-law is a teacher. He's called a mashpia, which is someone who's a mentor to the boys in the yeshiva. Oh. And he didn't want just his class to be there. He wanted the entire yeshiva because he's close to all of them. He feels that closeness. So here you had hundreds of boys there, sorry?
No.
You had, all these boys there participating in this celebration of life, the continuation of life, and you see how the circle continues. And this is the circle of the Jewish people. How we go through the desert, the desolation and the difficulties and the challenge, and then we come back again, we emerge again, and we continue in what we need to be doing in spreading the light of Torah, the light of morality, and the light of life to the world. And we see that today more than ever. As we were driving a couple days before we left, we were driving on the 59, and there was there was this whole protest. So you pass these protests.
On Sunday?
Yeah, on Sunday, yeah, Sunday afternoon. You were there too. We should have waved to each other. And you pass this first little group of people, and they're protesting and peace for Gaza, and then just a little further down, you see these other group of Jews, proud Jews, and we're harking our horn and we're saying, "Am Yisrael Chai," and they're like, "Come, join us, do it with us," and we're like. And it didn't look like religious Jews were doing that, but it brings out the religiousness of all of us, the roots of all of us, who we are. It so strongly brings out who we are. It's when we're in that desert, we're in that desolation, when we're in that midbar, that we realize more than ever who we are, what our identity is. And that's this whole book is called Bamidbar. Now, starting off this book, right at the beginning of this midbar, is immediately we have the census, this counting. Count the children of Israel, count them all, do the census. And it's not just census people who are told to go door to door to do the census, but it's no less than Moshe and Aaron, which teaches us how important this was, how this job was such an important job, because this is God counting his beloved. Just like, some people count their money, when you come home from the bank and you count, or some people count things that you love, things that you feel is dear to you. So too God counts the Jewish people. And God is counting the Jewish people, and he's counting them because these are so beloved to him. And when we think about the counting, what does it really mean? Why was it so necessary? We're talking about this midbar, this desert that we're in, this desolation that we're in, the challenges of life. And right then we're talking about the census, make the census. So let's talk about a census for a minute. What is a census? If I was going to make a count of this room and count all the people in this room, every person will count as one. No one is two, everyone is one. It doesn't matter how smart you are. It doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter how brilliant you are. It doesn't matter how rich you are. It doesn't matter anything like that. What matters is you're a human being, you're counted as one. So on the one hand, a census is the ultimate equalizer. Everyone's equal. Doesn't matter what status you're at or what you know or how talented you are, you're still number one. You're one. Everyone is one. And everyone is needed because they're one. And this is what it says, that when it came to Matan Torah, the giving of the Torah, God says if one person was even missing from there, the Torah couldn't have been given. Just like if there's one letter missing in a Torah, it's pasul, you cannot use it. It's not kosher anymore. Similarly, God said at Matan Torah, if any person is missing, I can't do it, because every single person is needed. Every person counts as one, but you are that one that's so important. So on the one hand, a census means that you're only one. It doesn't matter what you've accomplished, what you've not accomplished, you are still one. On the other hand, it's also saying that you're needed as you're one. You're one and you're part of something. You're part of a greater whole. So on the one hand, it talks about your uniqueness as an individual, that you're needed, and if you wouldn't be here, we couldn't have it. And on the other hand, you're only one of the entire amount. So you're needed in conjunction with the whole. You're a part of the whole. You are one in this big whole. Without you, there couldn't be that whole, because every person contributes their oneness, their uniqueness, their part of the whole. So it shows how important each of us is. The census was done at this time to specifically when we're in the midbar, specifically when we're in this desert of life, when we're going out to fight the world, when we're going out to fight the difficulties in the world. In the midbar, there was all kinds of huge problems and obstacles there was no water, there was no food, it was a desert, it was desolation. And in our own personal lives, there's also challenges, different kinds of challenges, but there's desolation, there's challenges, there's difficulties that we encounter. How can we succeed in confronting those challenges of our lives? By knowing two things. That number one, you count as one. You're important. You're important. You're a part of the census, and you're needed. Without you, I cannot have the whole. You are necessary. You're necessary, and you're necessary, and you're necessary. Each person is needed. Each person is vital. Each person is so much a part of the whole that you're needed. You're needed to be there. So we need to feel, when we're going through, sometimes you feel, you go through a challenge, and sometimes you feel it's just, what's the point of it? What's the purpose of it? How am I contributing in life? And sometimes we go through stages of our lives where we say, what's the purpose of my life? What's the purpose? What am I really accomplishing here in this world? What am I really doing? Who am I really touching? Who am I really taking care of? Who am I really here for? Like, what's the purpose? It sometimes feels like it's just one mundane day after another, and you just feel like, what's it all about? What's the meaning of it? What is the purpose? And we need to remind ourselves, we don't always see the purpose. We don't always see the purpose of every little thing that we go through, but it's there for a reason. What we're going through is for a specific reason and for a purpose. So you matter in what you're doing matters, and what you're going through matters, and you're necessary. What you're going through in your life and your challenges and your contributions are necessary. Without you, there could not be the whole. So that's the first thing that we need to remember when we're going through this desolation of life, that you matter. Your challenges matter. Your contributions matter. Your uniqueness matters. You're important, and without you, there would not be this greater whole. And the second thing that we need to remember is I'm only one. That I'm in it with everybody else. That I'm just one. There's others as well. That I'm part of something greater than myself. Because if I think that everything is on me, and I think we sometimes do that, where, especially as women, we feel like we're carrying every burden on our shoulder. We're taking care of so many things, and we're, emotionally, physically, spiritually, there's so many things that we're carrying on our shoulders. We're carrying everybody's issues, and we feel like we're almost the solution to everyone's issues. I have to take care of this problem and that problem, and if I call this person, maybe I could help this one, and I'm the one that's taking care and solving the problem. And it's all on me. And if I don't do it, it's not going to get done. And I think sometimes as women, we need to say, hold on, take it easy, relax. We feel our shoulders almost drooping because there's so much on our shoulders. Any of you feel that way? Many times a day? And it's time for us to, and it's exhausting. It's literally exhausting. The exhaustion is not only the things that we're doing, it's of course the things that we're doing, we're juggling and doing so many things, but it's not even the things that we're doing, it's the things that we're carrying. It's that we're carrying so many burdens, so many responsibilities, so much that we feel like we're in control of it all. And if I don't do it, then it's not going to happen. And if I'm not taking care of it, no one's going to take care of it. And it's on my shoulders, and I'm the one that needs to be doing. And we have to sort of relax and say, it's not our shoulders, it's not us. We're part of a bigger whole. Obviously, God is orchestrating it all, and we don't need to feel that it's all me and my job. Lo alacha hamlacha ligmor. It's not for you to finish the job. You have to do your part. You have to do participate in doing your contribution, but you're not the one to finish the work. We're all in it together. So on the one hand, the census teaches us you're important and you count, and you're so important. Without you, the whole is not going to be, there is no whole because you're counted. If you're not there, then we're not going to have the whole. On the other hand, we're saying, don't think that you're just the only one there. Remember that we're in it together. The Jewish people are all in it together. We are with this greater whole, and we can rely on this greater whole. We can rely on God who's leading us, but we can rely on the fact that we're all in this together. And when you're in something together, when you're part of a greater whole together, it lightens the burden. So our prayers, we're going through a terrible thing with the hostages now. We're going through terrible things with Eretz Yisrael, and sometimes you feel like, how? But we're in this all together. And many of the parents of the hostages, I was just listening to Rachel Poland, who was speaking at the Kever Rachel, and she was saying she feels lightened from the burden because we're all praying with her together. I mean, obviously, we can't imagine, we can't fathom the pain that she's going through, or that these people are going through, but their burden has been somewhat lightened by the fact that we feel like we're all in it together, that we are one nation, that it's hurting us because it's our brother that's been taken. It's our son that's been taken. It's our child that's been taken. So as we're going through the midbar in life, we need to remember this. And a census gives us that feeling. You matter. You can go out there. You're important. You can do it. On the other hand, you're part of a greater whole. There's others who are sharing the burden with you. So all the more so, you can meet the challenge. You can go out in the desolation of life. You can go out into the challenges of life, the difficulties, the midbar, the desert of life, and you can succeed in doing what you need to do. So this brings us to another question, which is, if a census, the whole point of the census is to really tell us that you're important, builds up our self-esteem, builds up our self-worth, it builds up our feeling that we're united and we can do it, and it makes us feel important that our task is there and we count and we're necessary for the whole, then why, when we do the census, we see that who was counted? Anyone know who was counted?
Women between 20 and 60.
20 and 60 was men between the ages of 20 and 60. Those who were going to war, because they needed to know who was the part of the army, those who were going out to war. And we know in Judaism that our elders are considered, we revere our elders. So are we saying people after 60 don't count? And we know in Judaism that the Jewish woman counts. So are we saying that the Jewish woman doesn't count here? Why are these, we're saying that we're counting every person, and every person is important, and every person has a contribution to make, and every person is necessary. And we can't have that whole without each and every one, each individual, to make up the whole. So what about the people that were under 20? What about the children? We know in Judaism also we say the power of Mipi Eilim V'Yainkim. It says that it's through the mouths of babes and infants that God listens. It's their prayers. Their prayers are so precious to God because they're so innocent and they're so pure. So them all the more so. It's interesting as well when the Rebbe made a whole campaign he called it Sivos Hashem, the army of God. And this was the children under bar and bas mitzvah, who were part of this army of Hashem. What was the army? The army was to do mitzvot, to teach children. And you rised in rank as you did more learning in Torah, as you did more mitzvot, as you took on, there was different ranks that you can go. And you went up and up in this army of Hashem. And some people were very upset. They were saying to the Rebbe, why are you calling it an army? It sounds so like fighting. It sounds so aggressive. We're talking about little children here. Why do you need to call it like an army of God? Do something like a club or something, Why an army? At Sivas Hashem, an army of Hashem. And the point was, no, we're all in this army of God. We are all fighting the evil around us. We are all trying to bring light to the darkness around us. Everyone is doing that. Children too are counted in this army. Children all the more so. All this effort was for the children, for the little children. Children under 12, under 13, under bar and bas mitzvah. Once you graduated from 12 and 13, you're kicked out of this army. You join a new ranks of. But this army was for children alone, and it was a club that's still till today it's done. Learning and praying and studying, all kinds of things, mitzvot that they do. So, because we all are in this army. We are fighting the negativity of the world around us. This is part of it. So back to the question, then why weren't women counted in the census? Why weren't children counted in the census? Why weren't elderly people above 60 counted in this census? If the whole point of a census is to give us that self-esteem, to know you matter, so then you can go out to the world, why weren't they counted? So we really need to see that there's two different ways of fighting the negativity of the world. And the way of people from 20 to 60, 20 is already the age when you start thinking about the external. Until then, you're building yourself up, you're learning, you're developing. Once you hit 20, you're ready to go out into the world. You're ready to use your powers in the world, use your influence in this world. And when you are going out into the world, you're going to confront a world that's full of a midbar, that's full of a desert, that's full of desolation, that's full of difficulties, that's full of things that are antithesis of Torah and morality. And how do you fight that? Things that are the opposite of truth and light and goodness and morality and godliness? By realizing that you have a contribution to make, that your contribution is important. By having that self-esteem to know, I can do it. Because the world that you go out to tells you everything against what you're taught. And I mean, we see this in the universities today. Every time that you need a certain strength to go into those universities. I give credit to our Jewish college students who are there, because every time that they wear their yarmulke, or every time they go out there, they're harassed, and they're gaslight. There's so much gaslighting, and they're sometimes even threatened and insulted. All kinds of horrible things. So you need to have that strength. You need to be counted. You need to be counted as one to know that you matter. You matter, and and your contribution matters. And the fact that you're standing strong as a person in the Jewish nation is important. What you're doing is important. Now, how about the women or the children? I mean, the children we know are not going out into the world. The elders are also not going out into the world. And this is the other way of fighting the evil in the world. And both are important. So one way of fighting the evil in the world is to go out there and confront the evil that's around us. Confront the negativity. Fight the negativity. Fight all the darkness of the world. And then there's another way, and this is really the way of the woman. The way of the woman is more to nurture and uncover the goodness that is already there. And we need both. Both are important. So the women were being more the ones that were uncovering the godliness already in creation. How? By teaching the children, by creating a home, by creating an environment, so that when the husbands came back from the war, they had this home, they had this atmosphere, they had this environment, they had this nurturance where there was this godliness. So the men were going out to fight the godliness, and it's when they go out to fight the godliness, and that's, by the way, why a man needs to wear a yarmulke, because he goes out into the world. He needs that constant reminder on top of his head to say, God is right above me. God is with me. He's out in the world. He needs that reminder. A woman who's naturally more spiritual and has that connection with God and is nurturing the environment more than the man in going out into the world is creating that environment within. She's safeguarding the inner treasures. She's teaching the children. She's creating that atmosphere within the home. So she's reminded on a daily basis that she matters. She's reminded on a daily basis how important her role is. She's reminded on a daily basis about the holiness that she carries. She's surrounded with it. It's in her home, it's in her environment, it's in the teachings that she's giving to her children. The men, on the other hand, who were 20 to 60, who were going away from that holy environment, who were going out into the world, needed to have that extra census, that extra protection, that extra feeling of your matter, you're part of this unit. I guess we could say similarly to what the army would be. You know, when you go out into the army, you get this like rah-rah speech, and go out there and you're part. The captains always give this like speech to really, or you could say, if you're not in a wartime, when you're part of a team, when you're going out to play on the field, the coach will give you we're all part of this team, and and everyone has to do their part, and you're going to do your part, and you're going to do it. And he counts all the people on the team, and you're the quarterback, and each one has a role to play, and he pumps you up because you're going out to do that. So that's kind of what the census was. And that was, the message of it is the importance of every person and how we all count, but the importance of it in our own lives is to realize as we go through the challenges that we confront in our lives, we need to remember the message of the census. And what is the message of the census? That you each have a role to play. You have a role to play like I have a role to play, and we each have a role. And no one's role is greater or less than the other. And going back to that bris, it's like taking that my new grandson, right? And now he's named after my father, and it's like this little infant who can't even speak, can't even go, goo goo, can't even do anything, and yet he is counted in the same way as my father.
Wow.
That's the power. This little child is a soul. He's a soul, and he's one. And he's carrying this namesake because the circle revolves and the circle goes all around. And that's the message for us as we go into our own lives, as we go out there and do what we need to be doing. We go there with the confidence, with the understanding, and with the surety that what you're doing is essential. Your role, your contribution to the Jewish people, to the world at large, is essential. Every mitzvah you do, every prayer that you do, every good deed that you do, every little bit of light that you show into this world, that you bring out into this world, you are needed. You are essential. What you are doing is important. And at the same time, don't feel the whole burden is on you. You're together with all of us. We're all in it together. We're all part of this greater whole. So that is, should we go on or should we stop?
I think you can keep on going and
Keep
going.
on going.
But it's up to you.
Let me ask you something. Isn't it a big burden on a baby to have a name? I mean, your father was, everyone is something, but your father was so big, so to give a baby, really, isn't it a burden?
I just wrote something to answer that.
Yeah.
I said that he is imbued with the spirit of the Father.
Yeah.
So it's come through into his being.
Yeah.
And that's so extraordinary and so beautiful.
Absolutely, 100%.
So that it's not a burden, but it's a gift.
It's a gift.
It's a gift, yes, but it's a big gift.
But look at what each of us, look at what each and every one of us carry, the Jewish name that we all carry. It goes back in a chain. I'm named Chana, which is after the Rebbetzin, the Rebbe's mother, who's also the first Chana, is the mother of Shmuel, Shmuel Hanavi. If you look at all the names that we're talking about, Rivka, look around the table at all the names. The names that we carry are huge, because this is who the Jewish people are. And it's said somewhere, I read somewhere that at the beginning people didn't want to name after Moshe because it was just like too holy. But as time went on, they realized this is the greatest gift that you can give someone, that you're giving them those qualities, the gift of that person is now a part of them. And that's the greatest gift that each and every one of us has. When we carry our Jewish name, when we wear our Jewish name proudly, we are wearing greatness. We're representing, go back to who it represents. This is each and every one of us. This is our gift. This is the gift that we've been given. This is who we carry, because the circle of life continues. And we think, oh, who am I? But no, you're number one. And you're number one. And you're number one. But you're a one. You're a real one. That's the meaning of the census, that you carry that importance. You carry that role.
Yes.
It's talking about an Hashem Tov. When you have a Hashem Tov, a good name,
Yes.
that's what lasts forever. Your body doesn't last. Even your mitzvot don't always last, but your Hashem Tov is what lasts. So naming after someone who's a gadol, that the feel of the prayer is that this child should be imbued with the spirit of this particular person. Right?
Does it have anything to do with Gilgul Neshamot?
It does have something as well, yes. It's
His soul.
we don't know all what that
Yeah.
means, but it is some kind of part of the soul comes back into
That's
that
what I
person.
mean.
Yeah,
Yes.
it definitely does something for I don't understand exactly what and how, but definitely it's part of it does something for the soul as well. It's something that's
Yes.
positive for the soul as well.
Which I always ask, because when I was pregnant, my father passed away. But Daniel was late, and I